Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from the United States, English language, released in the year 2018, directed by Jordan Downey, and this film is called The Headhunter. So The Headhunter is set many hundreds of years ago in the Viking times, mixed in with a little bit of fantasy. So you've got this Viking who is a headhunter. Now the headhunter, every time a nearby town sounds a horn, it means that a monster is threatening them, and so he goes out, he kills the monsters, and he puts their heads on a wall that he keeps as a trophy cabinet. So at the start of the film we learn that he has a daughter, and his daughter has succumbed to a monster. Now this particular monster has disappeared, and so no matter how many other monsters this headhunter kills, he can't get the satisfaction until he's avenged his daughter's death. So he's waiting for this monster to return, and then one day it does return, and now he goes out into the wilderness in order to try and hunt this monster down, which is going to put him in direct danger. So whether or not he can avenge his daughter's death is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Headhunter. Every time from now on, when you see a low-budget filmmaker say that the shortcomings to their movie is because of their money, or whether it's a bad film and they use the low budget as an excuse, point them to this movie and say to them, this is an example of how to make a very good horror film on a very low budget. Is that this is an example of not using excuses. Is because this is a film that knows exactly what it wants to be, and it knows its limitations. The self-awareness is second to none, and that's why I enjoyed this movie as much as I did, and I wasn't expecting to, because this movie only had a $30,000 budget. Now I couldn't actually believe that after seeing the film. I had to actually go and research, and it was verified that it was only a $30,000 budget. Now that is very low as far as cinema is concerned, but the reason why I was so shocked that it was only $30,000 is because it has a facade that it was worth so much more, and that is down to the self-awareness of this director. This is a movie with very limited things going for it. Is that it's, as far as production is concerned, it centers upon one character, and as far as a setting is concerned, the majority of the film takes place inside this guy's house, and so you see what he's killing. You don't actually see the kills, or majority of the kills in this film are off screen, and so the low budget is not evident. It's because it's not trying anything extravagant. It's not trying anything out of its limitations. Therefore, you don't notice the fact that it is low budget. And that's something I really liked, is the self-awareness allows you to really immerse yourself into this world and not really get distracted by things that a director who's not self-aware would try and do. So this is a film more about anticipation than it is about actually seeing the outcome, which is something that creates a lot of suspense. This is something that Alfred Hitchcock and Roman Polanski did so well, is that it's not so much about seeing the monster, it's about creating the monster in your head, and this movie does that very well. Is that the majority of it, as I said, you don't see what this guy is killing, you just see the aftermath of him putting heads on the wall. And so what does he do when he goes out there? When he comes back from each kill, he has a new injury, and you think to yourself, well, how did that injury come about? And so you start to see things inside your mind, and that creates a lot of fun. And so it has a very simplistic approach to its filmmaking, but the majority of the film takes place inside your own head. And so I thought that was really good, is because it couldn't do anything more. It couldn't show you excessive kills. It couldn't show you these big monsters with CGIs, because it wouldn't be able to achieve that in a way where you could actually enjoy it. It would only derail the film because it would look cheap. It would look like a $30,000 horror film. And so that's something that was the most impressive quality about The Headhunter, is because it is a film that knows exactly what it wants to do, and it knows exactly the limits as to how far it can actually go. And so that was absolutely fantastic. I really like the setting. The movie takes place with basically one character and one setting. And so I thought, all right, well, in order for this to work, it can't go on for too long. And the movie's only 70 minutes. And so that's another example of self-awareness, is that a movie that takes place with one character and just him going out killing monsters, for a 2-hour film, that would have been incredibly boring after a while. But 70 minutes, it never really gets to the point of being boring. The movie does have issues that I'll go into a little bit later, but the 70-minute runtime is another clear example of self-awareness. And this is self-awareness that that not a lot of other directors possess, is that directors are more concerned about pleasing an audience with, you know, special effects, but if you don't have the budget, you can't do that. And that's what derails a lot of low-budget horror films. But that's something that really elevates this low-budget horror film above the rest of the normal sort of low-budget horror films out there. And it's a clear example that Jordan Downey is a very good director and he could do really good things with a bigger budget. And so the acting was very good. Is that this has a very limited script. This is a movie that does bank on body language, and so that was actually quite good. And so majority of the film he is by himself, and it's not dictating what he's thinking. Basically what he's thinking is coming out through his body language. And so at the start of the film you get a very little sort of insight into the relationship with his daughter, but then we since learned that his daughter has died, and so that's enough to actually gain a little bit of humanity into this guy who is killing all these monsters. I thought the monsters that you do see are practical, and I thought they looked really good. Is that there are some moments you might roll your eyes and think that looks silly, but it was very charming to see. It's kind of like a throwback to practical 80s monster films. But the good thing about it is that you don't see them too many times, and so when you actually see it you think, alright, that looked good, but the director never tries anything too much, and so I thought that was fantastic. He reins it all in, and as I said, it's all about anticipation, it's all about suspense. I thought the overall nighttime scenes, there were some scenes that I absolutely loved, is that the director plays with you, he has you on a nice edge. As I said, it's more about what is going to happen as opposed to actually seeing what's happening. And so if you can see what's happened, if you can see where the danger is, you can see what's coming, you have a certain sense of security. But when you don't know where the monster is, you don't know where it's coming from, all of a sudden that safety net is non-existent. And so the safety net for the majority of this movie is non-existent, and that anticipation is absolutely fantastic. And so he really knows what he's doing, this director, as far as atmospheric horror films are concerned. And I thought the end of this movie was absolutely phenomenal. I'm not going to tell you what happens, but I wasn't expecting that, and so that was great. If I have problems with the movie, is that yes, there's 70-minute runtime, it's a very short film, but unfortunately the movie does get a little bit repetitive here and there. Is that I kind of felt in the last quarter especially, it ran out of ideas and it ran out of creative ways to keep the story progressing in a fluent way. And so there were moments where I thought, alright, it's deja vu. He's kind of doing the same thing over and over. It never gets to a point where it destroys the experience, but it gets to a point where you start to notice it. And as far as production is concerned, the majority of it looked fantastic, but there were slight pockets where it looked a little bit cheaper. And so I thought, alright, this looks like so much more than $30,000, but then all of a sudden you think, oh, there's that $30,000 moment, but then it goes back to looking really impressive, but then another little pocket where you think, oh, there's that $30,000 again. And so there's some slight sort of chinks in its armour that you kind of notice. It doesn't derail it, but you kind of notice that. And so, yeah, being repetitive in some areas and that slight sort of moments of distraction prevent the movie from being perfect. But as far as $30,000 are concerned, this is incredibly impressive. Jordan Downey could do a lot, I am sure, with a big budget. And so if you are a fan of low budget horror films, you're a fan of suspense, The Headhunter is definitely one I would check out. I was surprised by how competent this movie was, and as a result of that, I'm going to give this film 3 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.